The Green New Spiel.
You mean the Green New Deal?
No, Spiel. So what is a spiel? A long or a fast speech or story, typically intended as a means of persuasion or as an excuse, but regarded with skepticism or contempt by those who hear it.
So the Green New Spiel definitely fits.
It defines it. It actually defines it completely. They're trying to sell it based upon
a lot of fast talk and storytelling.
And we're skeptical. So
with good reason.
Rational people have a tendency to be a little bit more skeptical when there are high-pressure salespeople trying to sell you something, but they're making it all look great. How great is this green new technology?
Let's elaborate on what green new technology is.
Okay, all right.
Typically it's defined as renewable energy sources.
Yep.
Wind turbines, solar panels.
Eco-friendly.
Right.
That's how they're billing it. That's how they're trying to sell it. It's eco-friendly.
Now, there are things like natural gas, which is cleaner and greener than any other fossil fuel.
Hey, you can get it at any Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the other stuff, right?
But it's not included in this Green New Spiel because it's a fossil fuel.
Right.
It's not renewable.
Right. That's what they're trying to sell us, is that natural gas isn't a renewable thing because it's made over time by fossils, by organic materials.
Yeah.
So, and doing some research and listening to people speak about it, watching what people say on social media. I had somebody that stepped right in and happened to say something about nuclear technology.
Nuclear
technology. If you're in the south, it is nuclear. But nuclear technology, she happened to say that, well, it's fossils. No. It's not fossils.
It's a mineral.
Like cobalt.
Yeah.
Like lithium.
Yeah. The things that they make batteries out of.
Yep, for that green technology.
Yeah.
Yep. That's not fossil either, and neither is uranium.
So, what are these renewable energy sources? Basically, they're century-old technology.
Been chasing windmills for a while, bro.
Windmills been around since Don Quixote was tilting at them. And
chasing and tilting.
Now, first of all, let's be honest. Renewable energy sources like wind and solar, especially, those are the two biggies, are not reliable.
Hey, they're awesome. If I can pull that energy out of thin air, that's awesome. That's amazing. In fact, I would do it. I would power my house completely on green technology.
But solar panels only work when the sun shines.
Yep.
Wind turbines only work when the wind blows.
And I would have a battery backup if I could afford it. Now, there's a key word that they don't talk to you about is, can you actually afford it? You can afford solar panels on your house because, A, that's government subsidized. They're selling you solar panels for your house. Hey, and that's a great idea. It really is.
I mean, point of use is where this technology works best.
Right.
If you got solar panels on your house, if you got a wind turbine in your backyard, and it generates enough to either supply all of your needs or the majority of your needs with a little bit of supplement from your local power company, then that's a net win for you.
Absolutely. Especially if your power company is willing to buy it back from you. Of course, where I'm at, they're willing to buy it back, but only at a very small fraction of what they charge for it. So it doesn't really make any sense for me to do that.
Now, they used to buy it back at the retail rates. Now they buy it back at the wholesale rates.
Exactly. And I mean, in some instances, those prices are like nominal. I mean, extremely nominal. You just let it go, what you don't use. But if you had battery backup, now you can store your own power for when the sun's not shining, or when the wind's not blowing, or at night. Mm-hmm. So that's a great deal. But that's what they're not telling you, is how much that battery backup actually costs. There's where your expenses are.
Oh, yeah, you can get the solar and you can get the wind turbine, subsidized relatively cheap.
Yep.
Relatively speaking.
Right.
And it's going to save you money on your energy bill.
Yep.
Without a doubt. And you'll eventually recoup your costs.
Yeah.
But
there's always a but.
You throw that battery back up in there, and it's going to take you a while to recoup those costs.
It's like a Tesla vehicle. Hey, they're great for what, 400 miles?
Yeah, 300-400 miles, I think, is the average range on them.
Is the average range. So, I mean, that's cool.
That's a tank of gas for most cars.
And, they're talking quick charge stations. Hey, that's cool too, but it still doesn't get you to the full range of the vehicle on a quick charge. So you're going to have to plan your stops if you're in electric. If you're driving any distances in electric, you better plan for a lot more time on that trip. That's if you can afford a Tesla. They're not very affordable.
And they're even subsidized.
And they are subsidized. And some little tidbits of information that I've gleaned is that the average loan on a Tesla is between 5 and 7 years. Like a typical car, your payments are going to be higher because they are more expensive. But what I found out is by the time you get your Tesla paid off, your batteries are no longer any good. So now you have to buy new batteries, which is like 2/3 or more of the cost of the car. So, and I know there's a lot of people out there going to say, yeah, but gasoline motors, they fall apart. There are lots of repair to them. Diesel motors the same way. True. That's all goes to maintenance on a lot of those issues, because there's a lot of guys out there driving diesels well into the million range. Are they environmentally sound? Well, with all the EPA restrictions that they have put on diesel motors today, wow, they've really, really cleaned up the emissions of those vehicles. We've spent a lot of our tax dollars for them to develop even greater emissions, to restrict the abilities of those motors, because they do definitely restrict the abilities of those motors, to clean up our environment. Our tax dollars have through subsidies. I don't know, you got to weigh this stuff out. Is the technology there yet?
Well, and you talk about replacing the battery, which again is half to 2/3 of the cost of the car.
Absolutely.
So with any car, gasoline or diesel, you have maintenance repairs. You may have to spend $100 for a new alternator or a new battery ever so often. Of course, tires are going to be the same no matter what vehicle, electric or gas.
Right.
But, you got your regular oil changes and things. The thing is, with an internal combustion engine driven car, your maintenance is spread out over time. $50 for an oil change here, $100 for an alternator there, things like that. You don't go out and practically buy a new car every 7 years.
Well, and there are a lot of people who do, and hoorah for y'all. I'm glad that you can afford to do that, but there are still a lot of people who can't do that, and that just goes. I heard that GM is going to stop designing the fossil fuel engines and start going towards the all electric lineup. Again, the only way they're ever going to do that is with the government propping them up through subsidy, because they can't afford to do that. There's absolutely nothing affordable towards GM changing their entire lineup except the government promising them millions of dollars to do so.
And
Get them on board.
Ironically speaking, one of the largest investors in green energy is the oil industry. Because it's so heavily subsidized by the government.
Yeah.
So, they're having their cake and eating it too. They're building their own replacement.
Yeah, they're hedging all their bets
with government funding and government incentives and government subsidies.
And who's paying?
Taxpayer subsidies.
Round and around we go in that big old circle jerk.
So,
where free market capitalism is no longer free market capitalism. It's actually government subsidized taxpayer capitalism, because we get to pay for the development of a private corporation through our tax dollars to develop a product that we're going to buy back at an exorbitant rate. I don't understand how that works with liberty and freedom and all. I just don't get it. And I don't get how you guys are allowing them to sell it in a Spiel.
Because it sounds good.
It sounds good.
It sounds environmentally friendly.
Yeah, if you want to be an environmentalist, be a John Muir. You want to be a conservationist, stop throwing your paper out of your cars. But until I see my highways clean, I don't trust that you are environmentally sound in any way, shape, or form. I haven't seen a give a hoot, don't pollute commercial since I was a kid. What happened? They don't care about throwing paper out on the highways anymore?
No, obviously it worked and people stopped polluting.
If you're not going to make the prisoners clean up the highways, because, oh my gosh, we certainly couldn't make them work. And if they got hurt, the state's going to take care of them for the rest of their lives because they got hurt cleaning up paper. Well, once upon a time, they were making little rocks out of big rocks. And I'll bet you that was a heck of a lot harder work. But they were still doing it, and suddenly we stopped because we're kinder and gentler.
That was slave labor. Slavery, that's very taboo.
Kinder and gentler to criminals. Again, y'all are throwing some spiels out there. These aren't deals. These are spiels you're trying to sell the people, and hey, if you don't have a lot of common sense, they sound great and grand.
Now, let me just throw this out there.
Please.
You got an electric car.
Yep.
You got an all-electric house.
Yep.
And you're all into green, renewable energy.
Yep.
And the power goes out.
What? That can't happen. We have a grid.
Oh, well, yeah. Tell that to Texas.
Oh, that's right. See, last week...
Oh, no, it's been a couple of weeks.
No. It hasn't been that long.
Oh, no, it hadn't. It was...
What's wrong with you? It's trying to mess me up thinking it's been a couple of weeks, but it wasn't, because by Sunday we were actually... Sunday or Monday, we were actually 70-degree differences in less than 7 days in Texas. And we did experience power outages, rolling blackouts.
And we got to see...
This Texan had never seen before in Fort Worth.
We got to see firsthand what the Green New Spiel did to Texas, and we're going to do a whole video just on that subject.
We are going to do a video on that subject. But I'm going to tell you what, it's a reliability factor, because the technology has not been developed out far enough for it to remain reliable.
Well, it's also a scalability factor.
It is.
I mean, you get what the wind gives you. You get what the sun gives you.
Yeah.
And when it gets really hot outside and you want to crank that AC down a notch, it don't produce any extra juice. You get what you get. When it gets really cold and you got electric heat in your house, you can't just bump the thermostat up a couple of degrees, because you can't squeeze any more juice out of a windmill.
No, and you're not going to get any more juice out of a windmill. And if you don't have a battery backup for all that juice, well, and quite frankly, if you're on a grid, you're never going to have a battery backup, because they're not going to allow you to store energy that they're selling you. You're just going to use it on demand, as you always have. And if it's not reliable, you won't have it. So, there's a lot that goes into this. And this is just a small little smattering of it. But I want to give you some thoughts, okay? Because being American, to me, means being independent.
Mm-hmm.
It means liberty and freedom through independence, through responsibility. But everything this Spiel is trying to sell us is all about dependency. They want us to be dependent on other countries. Why would that be?
Because they're globalists.
That is exactly why. We are going to be, as a people, dependent upon other countries for our energy needs, while those that are trying to sell you this energy and that dependency are making their money in those other markets. Hey, that's awesome if you can do that, right? I mean, hey, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you invest heavily in foreign technology and manufacturing if you're lobbying to get that passed as law?
So
it's a good gig if you can get it.
Let me just illustrate what you're saying there.
Sure.
You know, because electricity, renewable energy, batteries, electric cars, yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
Where do these materials come from?
Exactly.
Lithium, cobalt, aluminum, and steel. Those are the 4 main ingredients of batteries.
Yep.
And where are we getting those from?
Well, you know, Australia is actually the top country for mining lithium.
Well, they're an ally of ours, so I guess that's not so bad.
Absolutely.
Even it's hard rock strip mining.
Absolutely. So if you think it's environmentally sound to mine lithium out of the ground, you absolutely have no clue in mining. And listen, I've had guys tell me, "Oh yeah, but you know, those strip mines, they're reclaiming them and planting grass in them." No. They're not, because the government has already given them a pass that all they have to do is every 10 years or so pull a little bit more of the mineral out of the ground, and they don't have to close it ever.
Keep it open.
Ever. So don't tell me they are, especially versus a pipeline that is already proven that they're replanting and covering up their pipeline as they go. So, you know, which is better, which looks better for the ground, which is more eco-friendly? You tell me. An open strip mine?
You know,
but yeah, that's Australia. So now that creates a dependency in Australia.
Which is an ally, so that's not horrible.
Is it an ally, though? Is it really an ally? Or is it just a dependent?
A dependent?
Because they've always been a dependent. I mean, literally. They would have been invaded by Japan and taken over as a country had we not stepped in. Now, you know, there's a lot of Aussies over there are going to say, wait a second, we've got an army, we stood up and we did our job. No, you would have been overwhelmed. And let's face it, that's just the case. But it's okay. We like our Aussie brothers for the most part. The most part.
Cobalt.
Oh, that's a big one for battery production.
Yep. And the largest producer of cobalt is?
The Democratic Republic of Congo. Wow, it's nice how they use those sweet resonating words. Democratic Republic. Just like they're trying to tell us about the United States democracy. Have you noticed that in the last 30 to 60 years, how they're sliding in democracy?
In place of republic?
In place of federalist constitutional republic. That's just too hard to say, right? So let's just throw democracy. We'll make everybody believe it's a flowery great word. So yeah, the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Largest cobalt producer.
And
again, open strip mining, right?
Absolutely. It's the only way. And you know what? I believe probably slave labor at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, speaking of slave labor and human rights abuses, largest producer of aluminum and steel, the final 2 components for most batteries.
You had to go there, didn't you? Now we're talking the largest producer of aluminum and steel at 53.3% of the world's steel production in 2019 was
China.
Now, if you roll that back,
if I'm not mistaken, they're also the world's leading producer of contagious viruses, but I just heard that somewhere.
I heard that too. If you roll back 70 years off our clock, who would have been the largest producer of steel in the world?
The U.S. of A.
Would that have been the U.S. of A?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, unequivocally, and probably would encapsulate a 80 to 90% hold on the market. But again, a kinder and gentler,
More globalist.
more globalist approach is now allowing China to be the lion's share producer of steel.
Who is an emerging country. They're not a first world country. They're still an emerging economic and industrialized nation.
Can you even be a first world country and be communist? I'm not sure that even works in the same context. I mean, you tell me, I don't know. But when your citizens are living in poverty and your government's gleaning off all the good stuff for themselves, that doesn't seem very first world to me.
You know, and that's just the global nature for the sourcing of materials for batteries. Now, you know, green energy is supposed to be all about saving the environment.
Yep.
But what about disposal of the green energy components?
What?
You know,
What's the problem there?
the disposal, well, for example, windmills. You know,
Yeah.
those big, huge windmill turbine blades that have about a 25-year or so duty life.
Or so. I love how they throw the or so's in there.
Which the ones built 25 years ago or so are being retired, and they're not recyclable.
They're not retrofittable either, from what I understand. It's way cost prohibitive to retrofit a 25-year-old turbine than it is to just pull that sucker completely off the post and put up a new one.
But
Tells you something.
they're not recyclable. Mm-hmm. They're not biodegradable.
No.
So what do they do with them? They bury them in huge landfills.
Well, from what I understand and what I read today, the blades are made up mostly of fiberglass with a lot of aramid fiber, carbon entwined for strength. And there actually is no government regulations on disposal. So it pretty much is up to a landfill as to what they're going to do with them, because fiberglass isn't really all that recyclable.
No, especially when it's mixed with carbon fiber compounds and yada, yada, yada.
And it's not really all that biodegradable either. So
No.
you're going to stick them in a landfill,
And then basically that's what they've been doing. They take those big, huge blades,
probably chop them up.
pull them down, cut them in half, throw them in a big hole and bury them.
Yeah. That's
You know.
environmentally correct.
You know, I remember when landfills were frowned upon.
What about the batteries? What's going to happen with the batteries when they are no longer able to hold a charge? Because I know I've got a couple of drills that run on lithium-ion batteries, and I understand how horrible that technology was 10 years ago, and it is getting better today. So, hoorah! It's getting better. But I also know that I've got a couple of dead batteries sitting around and nobody wants to take them.
Nope.
Why? I mean, these are just little tiny batteries.
Now, according to Elon Musk,
Oh,
you know, the king of batteries, even at the end of its life, a battery still has about a 20% recyclable
yeah.
value.
Yeah. And it's made up all of its negative values and carbon footprint by what it is produced over its lifetime. Like, that's great Spiel speak to me.
So you've got a 20% recyclability and 80% disposal, which apparently the disposal of that 80% is a biohazard and nobody wants to touch it. So, ergo, you radical environmentalists saving the planet and nature and this.
What do we calculate here in Texas alone? 1.5-ish million dedicated to wind park?
Yeah.
acreage? 1.5-ish
1.5,
acres.
1.8 million acres devoted to wind farms. Now, Texas ranks 5th in the world for wind energy production.
in the world.
And it only cost us 1.5, nearly 2 million acres of land to do it.
That's absolutely nothing. I'm not exactly sure how much land the 2 nuclear reactors are power plants, because they're dual reactor power plants. I don't know how much property they actually take up, but I don't think it's anywhere near 1.5 million. And they generate, what, 6,300 kilowatt?
Combined, I think.
I think 2 reactors are somewhere around 6,300 kilowatt versus the big boy windmills at, what was it, 250? No, it was more than that. 400 or 500 kilowatt for a big boy turbine.
Oh no, you can get a 1.5, 2 megawatt turbine,
Yeah.
but you can only put one of those on 50 acres.
It takes up significantly more land. One of the stats I loved reading about was how many birds are killed by wind turbines. 20,000 to 573,000. That's what they guesstimate is killed.
That's quite a range there.
Again, sounds like a spiel to me. You trying to sell it to me? But that's what you're going to give me, from 20,000 to 573,000, and you're going to tell me that, you know what, climate change due to the use of fossil fuels will kill more, like 96% more. Okay. Yeah, okay. I'm hearing you. But I don't even think it adds up to what you think or what I think. It's mesmerizing.
Yeah,
to hear
when
them
they start
talk in
throwing
circles.
numbers out like that, I always equate it to illegal immigration. 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. That 11 million has been 11 million for 30 years.
Well, that's because they've been controlling it.
Sure they have.
Well, that's what they tell you.
But they get stuck on a number, and they repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it until
People start believing it.
it is literally the big lie that Hitler talked about in Mein Kampf.
Well, I mean, it's
If
like
you-
the word democracy.
Yeah. If you repeat it often enough,
People believe it.
And boldly enough that nobody questions that you would actually lie about something like that. I mean, they actually have asked Department of Homeland Security how they came by that number. Well, it came from surveys of surveys of surveys. So when it comes down to it, they have no freaking clue.
Well, that's why they're called undocumented.
Which is why they keep spouting that 11 million number.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the Green New Spiel, they keep preaching.
Well,
And climate change, carbon footprints,
could it be because there's so much money involved in this? There's so much tax subsidy from us going into the government to go out to this kind of deal?
Well, I mean,
that-
look at the oil industry. The oil industry is not exactly hurting for money, yet they're one of the largest investors in green tech because of the government subsidies, because it's taxpayer financed.
You got a bunch of billionaires, let's face it, running around. People like Musk and Gates and Bloomberg and Bezos, Alois Woben, that most people probably haven't heard of, and if you have, he is a German entrepreneur billionaire. These guys, along with a slew of Asian businessmen and women that I'm not even going to get into their names because I know I would slaughter them trying to pronounce them, these people are promoting this. And in order to promote it, you have to get politicians to pass laws. All right, so what we're seeing is multi-billionaires creating their own lobbyist organizations to push politicians to pass these laws, regardless if they're good, bad, or otherwise for the people, because they don't care, because they're looking at the billionaire and what the billionaire can provide for them in the future, and they weigh that over us. And let's face it, that's what they're doing. Mm-hmm. When they pass omnibus bills that have all this crap buried in the bottom of the bill, all that pork you hear, that's what they're passing. They're passing this crap. And it's going to cost us dearly.
And this is what it comes down to. Renewable energy technology
is unreliable.
It's unscalable. Mm-hmm. It won't meet the demands, at least not the extremes of the demands. Now, 80% of the time, normal everyday operation, yay, let the windmills turn.
Yep.
And get that free energy from the air.
Keep developing your technology.
But it will never handle record cold snaps, record heat waves, and people will die because of it.
And we'll preface that, because saying it will never is one of those finalities.
Never say never.
It will never do it in the current form of technology or the current stream of future technology, because it's not there. We can't see what that looks like in the future. We can guesstimate, we can guess, but are you willing to put all of your money on it today? If you are, then you need to go to Vegas, man, because you need to be betting the odds at the casino, because the house always wins, and the house is always going to win in this instance too. And we need to figure out who the heck the house is, because they're the ones who are winning while we're out here suffering.
But my point was, it's unreliable and all that, mm-hmm. which means it is not competitive in the free market.
No.
Wind and solar cannot compete with natural gas and coal without government subsidies and incentives and taxpayer funding.
So how much tax do you want to pay?
So, okay, you get all your electricity from the wind turbines and the solar panels.
Yep.
Your electricity bill goes down because those rates are subsidized, so your actual electric bill drops. Your tax bill doesn't drop. Mm-mm. Your tax bill more than likely is going up because it's the taxpayer funding that makes that lower electric bill possible.
Well,
it also puts the other forms of electrical production, coal, natural gas, nuclear, at a disadvantage in the market because wind and solar are being subsidized by the government at cheaper rates. So
for the moment,
the stuff that is actually dependable and scalable and able to meet demand at peaks and when needed are being pushed aside mm-hmm. by an unreliable technology subsidized by the government.
I want to, I'll take a minute. What he just said, I want to do it in a very layman term. Okay. You walk into a store and you're going to buy yourself a refrigerator because you got to have one, right? Refrigerator goes out. You'll walk into a Lowe's or a Home Depot and they're saying, hey, I'll sell you that refrigerator 24 months, no payments, and interest-free. 24 months. Mm-hmm. 23 months, 99, whatever it comes out to, all right? So we're at our 24th. We're coming to the 24th month. You ain't made a payment on it. When it clicks over to the 24th month and you have to start making payments, guess what else you have to make payments on? 24 months of interest because you didn't pay it off before the 2 years. You had to pay it off. You waited. And now you're paying all the interest for the first 2 years. That's what you're going to be paying on green tech. Okay, you're going to get this energy at a cheap price because it's subsidized for a few years. And you're going to love it until you realize that interest-free low electricity that mm-hmm. you were paying for, the energy, boom. They've got you now, and they're going to make you pay for it in the future too. That's what they're doing. Very simply, it's an interest-free until. But they're not telling you the time frame, so you have no idea. And then suddenly one day, you are green energy dependent, And they've got you.
And then a deep freeze comes, and you can't turn up the heat.
No.
Because there ain't nothing left to turn up.
That's exactly right.
A heat wave comes, you can't turn up the AC because there ain't nothing to turn up. And when you're totally reliant on X, you get X amount of megawatts from these renewable sources.
Yep.
That X has to be divided by every person in the state or whatever, and that's your allotment.
Yeah.
And can you say rationing?
Well, and rationing is going to come in the form of you are not going to be comfortable because we have to ration that out to everybody. So it's 0 degrees outside, and the best you're going to get is probably 60 degrees inside because guess what? You got to ration it out. So if you're a naturally cold person, I don't know what you're going to do. And the same was going to go for the converse when you're in Texas and it's 110 degrees out. You're only going to be able to make it 80 or 85 in your house, which is cooler than outside, and that's what they're going to tell you. Well, at least it's cooler than being outside.
And I think you're being generous.
I absolutely being generous. Those are
the more likely scenario is it's 0 degrees outside, and the best you're going to get your house up to is maybe above freezing.
Yeah, to keep your pipes good. That's about it, folks. Hey, listen, all we're trying to tell you is this isn't a deal.
It's a spiel.
It's a spiel. They're trying to sell you something that isn't there yet. That's just the bottom line. It's not there yet.
It's snake oil in a pipe dream.
It is snake oil in a pipe dream, and they're trying to sell it to you, and they're trying to sell it and pressure politicians to pass laws to make this work so they can continue to get richer and we can get more and more dependent. That's what they want. They want us dependent because the more dependent we are, the more controllable we are. Right now, we're wild cards.
Yep. And
for the moment.
Right now, we're still somewhat free.
Somewhat.
Which doesn't factor into the equation of their globalist agenda.
No, it doesn't.
Which will benefit Australia and the Congo and China and other countries. They source these materials for the Green New Spiel.
All the time.
So
it's all day, every day. We're going to be a global shopping nation. That's what we are going to be doing because we're not going to be a manufacturer anymore. We're going to be a consumer, and we're going to be dependent on other countries to make it for us. That's what they're driving us to.
And it's all going to be driven by the megacorps run by the Bloombergs and the Bezoses.
Absolutely. I mean, let's face it. They didn't want Trump in office. And again, we're not huge Trumps. We weren't ever huge Trump supporters until we realized how much they hated him.
And how much he actually got done through all of their fighting back.
Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, if the swamp rats in D.C. hated Trump, there's a reason they hated him, and that reason is good enough for me to support him. That's all there is to it, because I know these are crooked people. I know who Biden is. You can tell me all day long, oh, no, he's a good guy. He's been 50 years living on the tit of the government, our tax dollars, and has done nothing but proved that he wanted to control us more and more and more every day. Every day. The crime bill in 94. That's all Biden's thought processing.
Not to mention his deep ties to China. And, I mean, what did he do day one? Shut down the XL pipeline? So, I mean, there's...
He's been a liar all his life. He is a liar still today.
And unfortunately today, I don't even think it's his lies that he's telling.
No, it's the agenda lies.
He's just puppeting whoever's got their hand up his backside.
He's been handled his entire life as a politician, and he's still being handled today. That's what we got, guys. I mean, that really is what we have. And we have to start deciding where it is we as a nation want to go. Okay? I get the kinder, gentler thing. I do. Because we should all be kinder and gentler. But the reality is there are people out there who are trying to control us, who are trying to change what our founders created for us.
And trying to incorporate us into a global world citizenry.
Listen, dependency is not better than independency. It doesn't matter what you say about it. It is not. Being independent is a key to what we have enjoyed through the course of our history, good, bad, or otherwise. We have today, still, even today, with all the restrictions that have been passed on our liberties and freedoms, we still have the best country in the world.
You know, as an American, the answer is, and always should be, independence.
Absolutely.
Self-sufficiency. Personal responsibility.
Yep.
Not dependence, government or otherwise. Not dependence on corporations. You know, as my dad used to always say, if you want something done right, you do it yourself.
Exactly.
If you want your energy done right, put solar panels on your house. You know,
Absolutely.
put a wind turbine in your backyard.
It's a great idea.
You know, dig a well if you can.
Absolutely.
You know,
Become as independent from the infrastructure of your state as you can.
have an emergency generator if you have the means to do so.
Absolutely.
You know, if you don't, have a wood burning stove. You know, if you're lucky enough to have a fireplace, that'll keep you warm in the winter.
Absolutely. These are all things that you need to think about. And I get it. Inner city guys, you're not going to have a wood burner in there, and you're not going to have access. You're going to have to pay exorbitant rates for firewood. So it's pretty much just we're going to have a roaring fire on Christmas Eve because it's fun. It's not a heat source.
But that's pretty much the driving force behind all of this is city dwellers. You know, dense urban populations are the driving force for this.
Yep.
Because they have to be dependent to a certain extent.
Yep.
You know, they have to be dependent on the local grocery store or the power company or the water company or whatever, because they can't just drill a well in their apartment complex or plug in a diesel generator out on the balcony.
Or kids that you know, once upon a time, that at 18 years old you were on your own. That's been extended to what, 25, 26 now? So, I mean, those are kids that are still dependents on their parents at 26 years of age.
I read somewhere that the average age kids are leaving home now is 30.
I mean, if you went to school to get a art history major, you thought you were going to go to work at a museum and be a curator or restore old paintings. Hey, that's a great and lofty ambition in life. But if you didn't graduate super high in your class, that's not going to happen. So you're going to go back home to mom and dad until you can find something that art history major might be useful enough to actually earn you an opportunity to pay off all that college debt, unless, of course, mommy and daddy paid for it for you.
But that's the mentality that drives this Green New Spiel.
Yep.
You know, I'm an urban dweller. I'm dependent on the energy company, and through all of my social media and educational career, I was told I've got to help save the world. Well, this ain't doing it.
Help save the world while destroying a country whose sovereign citizens, and I use that word, and half the time that's a bad word. You know, they demonize sovereign all the time. But we are sovereign citizens, all of us. They're going to make us dependent. That's what they're doing.
But it's just like,
all of us.
You know, white privilege and toxic masculinity. The new one that's just starting to come out now is toxic individualism.
Yeah. It's only a matter of time.
If that doesn't scream, we want you all to be dependents, I don't know what does.
Oh, if that doesn't scream straight up Woodrow Wilson. Ignore the preface of the Declaration of Independence and think of us all as a collective. Kinder, gentler, right? Listen, man, we're just telling you that you need to think about it, and you need to listen and hear and read other perspectives, because the truth is in the middle of those.
Don't fall for the fast talking and
Don't fall over here, don't fall over there. Those are just the minimalized people who have that super loud voice or has that attention. Bring it back to the middle. Find the perspectives, and then you find the truths. And when you find the truths, you make good, logical decisions. And until then, man, if you want peace,
prepare for war.
Later, guys. Thanks for watching.